Spoilers ahead. Watch out, and take care. The movie begins with Congolese Prime Minister Lumumba, in the backseat of a vehicle. He puts on his spectacles and takes a big breath. The vehicle in front of him blows up. A squadron of troops is waiting for him. They get him out of his car, remove his blazer, and assault him. When General Moise Tshombe pays a visit to Prime Minister Lumumba, he is beaten and bound. He informs Tshombe that everything beneath the earth is owned by all of their people. It does not belong to the Belgians or the Americans, nor does it belong to Tshombe. The other man responds, "That's one way to look at it," and then goes away. Prime Minister Lumumba is assassinated by a soldier. O'Brien delivers a speech about Congo at the United Nations headquarters in New York. He accuses the countries of doing nothing, while Tshombe colludes with mining companies to gain control of Katanga. He emphasizes the importance of sending more peacekeepers to the area, in light of the death of Prime Minister Lumumba. We overhear Quinlan discussing Julius Caesar with a couple of his peers, in an Irish pub. Politicians do not understand tactics, and soldiers do not comprehend strategy, but Caesar mastered both. Gorman jokingly remarks, referring to Quinlan, that Julius Caesar is in the corner. Sniper adds Quinlan has read everything, and is well versed in every combat situation. Gorman inquires about his knowledge of the true thing. Prendergast is the one who speaks out this time. He assures that none of them do, and that Quinlan is their superior officer. Prendergast approaches Quinlan. They talk about the next expedition, and Quinlan says he doesn't think any of them know what's going on out there. Quinlan is kissing Carmel at home when the phone rings. He is informed that he and his army will be dispatched to Jadoville. Carmel makes fun of him for being excited to go, and wants to see if he's as talented as he believes he is. He merely smiles, draws her close, and dances slowly with her. Quinlan gives a lecture to his men before leaving. He claims these are the second wave of Irish soldiers to be dispatched to Congo, and 9 have already been lost. He encourages them to be proud of their decision to serve as peacekeepers, as it is a wonderful honor. He points out Ireland has never owned or attempted to conquer another sovereign nation, which is why they were explicitly asked to assist. Tshombe addresses the media, and declares they welcome the UN forces, albeit with reservations. He claims they have no idea why they are in Africa, because they are capable of looking after themselves, but he promises to be thoughtful hosts. He warns them not to cause trouble, because he promises to educate them on how things are done in Congo. Hammarskjöld admitted receiving a phone call from Khrushchev, who reminded him of the UN's original refusal to send in troops, when Prime Minister Lumumba requested them. Kennedy also contacts him and tells that they couldn't do anything in Berlin, Vietnam or Cuba, but that they believe they could calm the situation in the Congo. He personally requests that O'Brien travel to Congo, and put a stop to Tshombe's pranks. He clarifies this could lead to another world war, which Hammarskjöld acknowledges, but also implies the person who prevents it will be lauded. He assures O'Brien they will devise a strategy, and points out that everyone has a role to play in history, and O'Brien's happening right now. He agrees. Concerned about the UN peacekeepers being sent, Tshombe requests aid from General de Gaulle. The man asks him explicitly what he will receive in exchange. Tshombe tells him the mining firm's operations are in their best interests. If he loses power, the government may nationalize everything, including General de Gaulle's personal property. The man promises to send 1,000 of his best ex-legionnaires, who the mining firms will engage as protection but who will be under Tshombe's direction. The troops arrive at a United Nations compound in Jadoville. As the troop is exposed on 3 approaches, overlooked from the south, and a road splits in 2, Prendergast declares that calling it a compound is a joke. They're completely open. Quinlan acknowledges Prendergast's observation, and instructs the men to be ready at 6 a.m. the next day. O'Brien also arrives in Katanga. He runs into McKenney and Raja. Back at the UN in Katanga, O'Brien declares that Tshombe has crossed the line and must be stopped. He promptly authorizes the launch of Operation Morther, making strong efforts to recapture critical structures controlled by Tshombe. Because Raja's soldiers are the only ones with military experience, O'Brien implies that the remainder will look to them to set an example, and demands they demonstrate their decisiveness. Quinlan determines it's time to acquire supplies after taking a look at their supplies. Madame La Fontaine boldly informs Quinlan at the shop that their group is not welcome in Katanga. He inquires as to why, and she responds the people are dissatisfied with the way things are going, particularly since Prime Minister Lumumba took office. She argues that nationalizing the minerals and evicting mining businesses, that had been profitable for decades, was not a wise move on his part. Fawkes invites Quinlan to share a glass of French cognac with him in a neighborhood pub. When he joins him, Fawkes asks what he's doing in Katanga. Quinlan responds he is protecting the locals from a man who has stolen power, while Fawkes responds that he is protecting the mine's interests. Quinlan investigates the house near their property, and discovers that it is owned by Madame La Fontaine. He inquires whether he can use her phone to call Ireland. She informs him it is not for military purposes, but he corrects her, saying it is a personal call for his family. She gives him permission. Quinlan goes to thank Madame La Fontaine after finishing his conversation, and learns from her that Jadoville boasts the world's largest uranium resources. He knows it's the reason they've been stationed in this particular city in the Congo. When they return to the facility, Quinlan directs Prendergast to proceed to Elizabethville, and warn McKenney that there is a large mercenary force in Jadoville. He mentions that they require reinforcements. Prendergast advises O'Brien that Quinlan feels Jadoville is crucial to Tshombe, and is more secluded than other UN facilities. O'Brien remarks that Quinlan is probably overreacting, and Prendergast informs them of the presence of mercenaries in the city. O'Brien is still certain that these mercenaries were recruited by the mining corporation, and would never assault a UN team. He assures him that everything will be okay soon. Unfortunately, Prendergast does not receive what Quinlan hoped for. On his walk back to the facility, he detects an increase in the number of mercenaries around them. According to Raja, his troops are attacked by a security detail, who then lock themselves in Radio Katanga. They decide to finish them out with grenades, but discover too late that there are also unarmed civilians inside the structure. O'Brien claims that it did not occur and would not be included in any UN dispatches. The sniper screams out that the UN forces are under attack while they are observing mass. Fawkes pulls out his machine gun and begins firing. Quinlan demands everyone take on their assigned roles. After the guy orders Prendergast and the others to make for the south position, where no enemy is in sight, Cooley criticizes Quinlan and declares that he doesn't know what he's doing, and will get them killed. Prendergast chooses to board a truck and fire his machine gun, in order to confront the mercenaries. He kills many of them, so Fawkes orders the remaining to flee. The day concludes with both sides planning their next onslaught. According to Fawkes, they were misled, since they were told that the UN soldiers were unprepared. He claims they are easy to assault, because they have never been in combat. Quinlan, on the other hand, braces himself for an all-out assault from the enemy the next time. Prendergast reminds them that they have just 13,000 rounds of ammo left, which will not last long. McKenney finally responds, and Quinlan reports on what happened earlier. He chastises him for failing to provide reinforcement after he made the request. O'Brien removes the phone from McKenney and tells Quinlan to calm down. He feels that these mercenaries are only trying to save Tshombe's crumbling administration. He mocks Quinlan and tells him to quit making excuses. Quinlan directs Sniper to shoot the man in a white suit, who appears to be under Tshombe's command for the mercenaries' second attack. Sniper asks Quinlan whether he believes the man is significant, and Quinlan assures him that they won't have to wait long to find out. Fawkes observes that the man has disappeared, and commands another retreat. Fawkes declares a short truce and encounters Quinlan in the midst of the battlefield. He mentions how numerous they are, to which Quinlan responds that he sees many dead, but none of them are his. Fawkes contends that the only way to survive is for politicians to sort it out. Quinlan refuses to surrender, despite his advice. Fawkes requests a temporary ceasefire, so that they can administer to the wounded and rescue the dead. Quinlan concurs. However, it is a trap, as Hegarty notices a soldier preparing to fire a rocket-powered grenade. The combat has resumed. The mercenaries are closing in, and the unit is fighting to keep them at bay. A grenade lands near Quinlan but, thankfully, does not explode. Joyce explains that it's a dud, as he prepares his own grenade, and hits one of the jeeps carrying the enemy's mortar, setting off the others. Hamarhold has now learned the identities of those killed in Radio Katanga. When he inquires about O'Brien's role, his right-hand man reminds him that O'Brien is more of an academic, who believes that everyone will wait for his decision. Hamarhold admits that they must recognize the activities, but will distance themselves from them. When his right-hand man inquires, Hamarhold admits that they will assign blame. O'Brien talks with Tshombe and confesses he would like to see an end to the strife in Katanga between the UN and Tshombe supporters. The individual wants the United Nations to acknowledge him as president, and his administration as legitimate. O'Brien admits that it is unrealistic. As Tshombe departs, he recalls his fellow Irishmen in the field, and assures O'Brien that he has not forgotten them. Quinlan's ostensible reinforcements are ambushed the next day. He discovers only 30 troops were dispatched, rather than the promised battalion. McKenney warns him these soldiers must withdraw, since they are under heavy fire from the mercenaries and are unable to advance. Quinlan questions how they're supposed to battle with their ammo depleted, and their supplies depleted. He is struck in the shoulder by Fawkes, who is using a sniper, while assessing their remaining supplies. Donnelly summons a medic and directs that everyone keep a watch on the south flank. O'Brien advises abandoning those in Jadoville, because they are unable to provide assistance without losing more men. McKenty battles him on it, before they learn that Hamarhold's plane was shot down en route to Katanga, by a jet controlled by Tashombe. The troop makes contact with McKenty, but receives no answer. Quinlan eventually admits that if they had wanted to assist, they would have done so by now. Donnelly summons Quinlan's attention, and they discover a battalion of mercenaries on their way. Quinlan decides to have some of the soldiers gather their remaining mortars and cannon rounds, in order to assemble an improvised explosive. As the mercenaries move in, the troops congregate, and Quinlan gives the order to detonate the explosives, killing everyone nearby. As another group closes in, they plunder the dead mercenaries for their weapons. The troops are surrounded on all sides, and more enemies are on their way. As the jet returns, Prendergast orders everyone to retreat. Someone announces that their ammunition has run out. More enemies are approaching. A bomb goes off near their building, and the dust settles. The troop discovers the mercenaries have vanished, and Fawkes is coming, challenging Quinlan to finish the job. Quinlan returns to his troop after shaking hands. He asks his soldiers if they want to surrender, and they all say no. Quinlan, on the other hand, goes against their decision, and declares that it's all over. The troops are then imprisoned, and sentenced to death. However, they are released and go home, a month later. McKenty greets Quinlan when they return home. He informs McKenty that he is nominating all of his troops for medals, for their efforts in Jadoville. McKenty warns him of the powers that want to suppress the truth about the siege, especially after Quinlan complicated matters. Quinlan inquires as to how he did it, and McKenty responds that by surrendering, he made the entire UN organization seem awful. If the troops are viewed as heroes, the institution suffers. He challenges McKenty to a court-martial, but is warned that it would be for the benefit of his men as well as himself. He hits McKenty in front of O'Brien and his entire troop. As McKenty returns to O'Brien, the other guy declares that he was correct to desert the unit, or else the world will be at war. Quinlan's entire unit salutes him in gratitude, for sticking up for them. Finally, Quinlan and Carmel hug tightly. The end. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this. Turn on the notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out.